Now, whenever you work on vehicles long enough, you will encounter rust. And it comes to a point on how do I want to remove that rust. You can do it mechanically, meaning sandblasting, sandpaper, grinders, things like that, or you can do it chemically. And that's what we're going to do today. So before let's just dive right into it. But very quickly, I just want to say thank you to CRP Industries. They sent us some really cool products. This manufacturer is Fertan. And Fertan is a German manufacturer. High quality stuff. It's low toxic, biodegradable, a lot of their things, but it's going to get the job done. If you like what you see here, I will include a link in the description box below. So let's go ahead and take care of the job. So the first thing I'm going to try is the liquid rust remover. A couple things about this very quickly. It's water-based, it's non-toxic, biodegradable. You can reuse it several times, which is terrific, and you can dilute it 10%. In other words, 90% of the solution, 10% water. And if you are going that route, you do have to preheat the water to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Now, they do recommend using a stainless steel container. I don't have one. All I have here is plastic. Now, this takes around 12 hours to do its job at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So make sure it's pretty warm out in a sense. If it's under 68, you can still do it. It's just going to take longer. So I'm going to pour in the solution. I figure we'll just place in the parts like halfway, so we have a before and after effect. And let's see how it turns out. There we go. Okay. Let me see how it smells. I'm curious. Actually, doesn't smell that much. It's sort of citrusy in a sense. Okay. This is just an exhaust clamp. Okay. Let's see so you guys can see this. These are exhaust manifold studs. We'll place them in there. See how it does here. And we'll leave it. We'll leave it for at least 12 hours. So sometime tomorrow, we'll take a look at it, and then we'll wash it off, and we have to prime it, and I'll get to that once we come back. So in the meantime, I'm going to jump over to a larger part, and we'll check out the gel form. Okay, so now we're going to try the gel form of the rust remover. And essentially what you want to do is apply a very thin coating, something like 1/8 of an inch, on top of the bare metal here. And the reaction time is much, much quicker, 10 to 60 minutes. That's it. So it's a lot faster comparing it to the liquid form, which is 12 hours. So that's a nice plus. Fantastic for your larger parts, as you can see here, or even your hard-to-reach parts on your car. If you don't want to disassemble something, you can just take a brush, sponge, apply it, and let it do its job. It's water-based, it's biodegradable, it's non-toxic, so really big plus is there. So in this case, I'm going to try it on this AC bracket taken from the 240Z. If we reinstall air conditioning, obviously I want this bracket to be in really good shape. So this is the first step on that restoration. Remove the rust, and then we'll prime it as well, and then top coating it with a paint and that sort of thing. So I'm going to grab a bucket here. Let's place it in the bucket. Now, the other thing to note with this product, you want to, every so often, just spray it down with a mist of water. And that just prevents it from drying out. So maybe I'm going to let this do its job for 60 minutes. Maybe every 10 minutes I'll come back here and just spray it down with some water. Okay, so nothing too crazy. So it's been around 10 minutes, and I'm going to let this do its job for 60 minutes, but I just want to lightly spray a little bit of water, and that will prevent from the product drying out. Now the last thing is the rust converter. Now this is really two products in one. This will completely remove the rust, pulverize the rust, and then provide a zinc covering on top of the metal. And the main difference between the gel and the liquid rust remover is once we finish that job, we have to apply a primer, which we'll do in a moment. With the converter, you have 6 months before you have to apply the primer because it gives you a zinc covering. So this is bare metal. Once you do the job, this gives you a zinc covering that you don't have to cover for 6 months. That's one of the essentially the main differences between these two guys. The other thing is my original plan was I wanted to try this on a large a large piece of metal, something like a rear end, maybe the bottom end of a shock absorber, something like that. Unfortunately, I can't get the camera to look right with the lighting, and I want to give a good shot in a sense. So I have a transmission mount taken from that 240Z, 44 plus years of age. Will be a good test for all of these products, to be quite honest. And all that you need to do with the converter is remove any loose rust. You don't want to remove the rust, but anything that's loose, because if you have loose rust, in other words, crumbling rust, then if that falls off, there goes your zinc layer. So you just want to remove any loose rust, okay? Anything that's loose, any loose debris. As you can see, I got some dirt on the bottom here. So I'm just going to clean this off with a wire brush. And after that, we're going to apply a degreaser and then apply the product on here. Let it sit for 2 days, and then we'll see what we end up with. Very quickly with this as well, it is a water-based, non-toxic, non-flammable, and also has unlimited shelf life, even after opening. So it won't go bad, which is a really cool thing. So let me clean this up, and then we'll check out this sucker. So now I've cleaned off the surface, and before we add on the rust converter, you just want to clean off everything using a degreaser. This is something I've been using for years. It does a very good job. You can pick it up at Home Depot, Lowe's for maybe around $6 or so. This will remove any oil and grease left on the product. So just go ahead and spray it down, and then we'll let it sit for a few minutes. Wipe it off, and then we'll put on the converter. Okay, just wipe off the degreaser here. So now we're going to shake up the product, and the cool thing with this is you can apply it using a brush, or you can even spray it on, which is a nice option for very large parts for sure. Okay, so I'm just going to apply a little bit in here. Okay. And if you're curious about the smell, it really isn't that bad. Yeah, it's not that bad at all. I wouldn't do this inside a house, but it's really not bad at all. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we'll come back in 2 days, see what it looks like, and we'll wrap it up. Okay, so it's been 2 days, and this is what it looks like. So now we need to rinse it off with water, and we'll have a zinc coating. Now again, you can even let this sit longer if you wanted to, but based on the directions, if it's under 60 degrees, at least 2 days you want to let this sit. If it's under 41 degrees, it's too cold. So that's the key. You have to just make sure what the temperature is. So let's clean this off. And once we rinse this off, we'll let it dry. So now we're at a point where there's no dark water being rinsed off. So that tells me the product has been completely rinsed away. Okay. So now we'll let this dry. So now we're going to look at the parts that have been sitting in the liquid remover, and you can immediately see what a difference. Now these parts have been sitting for 2 days. Again, the directions state at least 12 hours, but since we're also using the converter, and the converter is going to take 2 days, or it did take 2 days, I just decided to leave the parts in here. But you can immediately see what a difference. You really want to rinse it off with water, but I just want to quickly show you what it looks like. Now again, we're down to bare metal here. So if you do plan on keeping something like this, I'm just using these parts as an example. But if it's something that's rare in your vehicle, or just something you certainly will keep around, you want to primer this, because this will rust up immediately. Even if you let this sit outside, the moisture in the air will start to develop rust on that metal. So that's the key, and the primer I'll show you in a moment. Let me just clean off these parts. I'll lay it here on the table and just show you what we have, okay? And here we go, the parts are now laid out, and you can clearly see all that rust is completely gone. Take a look at the bottom of this exhaust clamp. What an amazing, I mean, just the before and after. And take a look at the rust all in the bottom of that bucket. Very cool stuff. Now let's check out the gel and also the rust converter, and we'll wrap everything up. Now this is the gel product, and just like the liquid form, you want to wash it off with water, dry it off, and then we'll apply a primer to protect it from rust. So now the part is completely dry, and one thing I just want to note here, this portion I did 3 times. In other words, I applied 3 coats. So that first coat was the portion that I videoed earlier, and then off camera I washed it off. There was still some rust. I applied a second coat, let it sit for an hour, washed it off, then did a third coat. And this is what it looks like after 3 coats. I probably would apply maybe another one. You know, for this part, it would be quicker, to be honest, just to sand it. I just want to show you an example. But when it comes to crevices, you know, something like down here, the gel is fantastic because it will get all those crevices. You don't have to go crazy trying to sand it out. Now this portion I only did with 1 coat. So this is 1 coat, this is 3 coats. So you can immediately see the difference for sure. Okay. Again, the crevices, yeah, I could have done that. But I want to sort of show you on a grand scale, something that's a little bit easier to view in a sense. What it looks like after 3 coats. Okay, so now we need to primer this, and what I have here is their epoxy primer. All that you need is 1 thin coat. That's all you need. It takes 72 hours to dry. Just make sure it's at least 50 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Okay, there's what it looks like. Okay, and again, one very thin coat. That's all that you need. Make sure it's at least 50 degrees out Fahrenheit. Not very humid. This takes 3 days to cure. 72 hours to cure. And you can paint it if you want to. Per the instructions, you don't have to paint it, but if you want to paint it, top coat it. You know, maybe you're doing some chassis work, you want to use an undercoating, that sort of thing. And regarding these brushes, by the way, these are about maybe 98 cent brushes that I picked up at Home Depot because I knew I would just use them once and throw them in the garbage. Okay, that's it. So this is now protected. Let this sit for 3 days, and fantastic. Oh, geez, I just realized you guys couldn't even see that. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. Alright, so now we have the transmission mount here. It's completely dry, and as you can see, now we have a black zinc layering. Now this zinc layering provides 6 months worth of protection before you have to apply the primer. Again, with the gel and the liquid form of the rust remover, you have to apply the primer immediately, otherwise that rust will come right back. With this product, the converter, 6 months. So that's the main thing. The big difference, obviously, between the remover and the converter. So I hope this gives you a pretty good idea of what you can expect from these products. Again, if you are curious, you want to find out more information, product sheets, temperature ranges, all that good stuff, I'll include a link in the description box. And again, big thank you to CRP Industries for sending us these really cool products. So again, thank you for watching. If you like this stuff, please thumbs up, subscribe, and until then, we'll see you next time.